Hello, my name is Carrie Anne Philbin and I'm a secondary school ICT teacher in East London. I work at a school called Robert Clack. In 2012 I became a Google certified teacher, and through that process and attending the Google Teacher Academy I learnt ways that I could personalise the learning in my classroom for my students using free and open source web tools. In 2013 I gave a talk at BET about these tools and the way I've done that in my classroom, and I thought it would be nice to record that talk and put it on YouTube so other people could see it as well. I have a website called ICT with Miss P that's completely open. I have a blog on there where I write about everything I do in my classroom, so please go and have a look if you want to know more. I also run a project called Geek Girl Diaries, which was part of my action plan through Google. And that is a web series to try and engage more teenagers, especially teenage girls, in computing. My goal in this session is for you to leave with an idea of how you might take one or more of the tools I'm going to show you into your classroom, how they could help you personalise the learning for your students. Just because I teach ICT does not mean that the tools I'm going to show you are specific to my subject. They could be used in English, history, maths, any subject. I believe quite strongly that the internet belongs in the classroom. We are 21st century teachers, and I think we need to acknowledge how important the internet is in education. And what I don't mean is sending students to a computer room and say, go and research this topic on your own on the internet. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that we as teachers, as educators, we should curate the content on the internet for our students. I mean, we cannot deny the importance of the internet as a resource that we use. Teenagers, students, they know how to use the internet. They know that's where they're going to find the greatest source of their information. You give them a textbook, they're not really quite sure what to do with a textbook, but the internet they understand. And there's so much good content out there, we should curate that for our students. As teachers, we should act like a filtering system. So there are all these great websites, there's Khan Academy, there's TED-Ed, there's YouTube videos that are fantastic, Wikipedia, and we should sort of sieve out all the rubbish, all the videos of cats playing keyboards, filter the content that we want our students to see, curating it specifically for their needs. I have a blended learning model that I use in my classroom, and blended learning is a combination of face-to-face teaching and online learning. In my blended learning model that I use in my classroom, online learning is used to support and extend the face-to-face teaching. So in my classroom I will deliver my lesson to my students, but those students who perhaps find it more difficult or more challenging, there are ways that they can access extra resources on my website. I create videos for them because students can pause and rewind me, and there are extension activities. I can lead them to websites and videos that have ideas and questions that can extend them further. You know, the internet isn't here to replace me as a teacher, it's just about how we use it. This is my website, ICT with Miss P. This is what my students access to get to their lessons, to the blended learning model that I've created for them. They access this every lesson. They'd click on Year 7 if they're a Year 7 group. Their lesson would be on there, and I'm just using Blogger to write their lessons, and there are links on there to videos, to Google documents that I've created for them, to forms, and to some of the other web applications that I'm going to show you in this presentation. Here's an example of a lesson plan. Like I said, I use a blogging website to do this. It has the lesson, any information that's on there, the lesson objectives, and then links to any videos or documents or anything else they need to have access to. It's like having an online version of you for your students. So my website is an example of this, but you know, also I know I teach IT, I'm lucky I'm in an IT room to be able to do this, but if you look at History with Sanders, that's a history teacher doing something very similar. There's lots of examples of this in maths, in English as well. The first free and open source web tool that we have access to that is really interesting, exciting and positive in the classroom is video, for a number of reasons. You know, lots of people use videos as starter activities to really hook students from the beginning of the lesson, and it works. We can't deny that. But there are other ways we can use video to support and extend the students in our classroom. Another way that we can use video is to capture our instruction. Some people do some fantastic board work, especially in mathematics and in science. And what is really great is to use a video to record that board work, that direct instruction, that then you could upload to YouTube and then students could access it outside the lesson, because it seems such a shame to do some fantastic teaching in a lesson and then students have to kind of remember that. It'd be great for them to be able to go back and replay it and see that again, and also to show other people, you know, this is how I've done it, and to start a conversation. And it also lengthens the instructional time and gives more engagement to the students. We can meet students' needs by extending and supporting them, which is something that I really believe with video. A student can pause and rewind me, especially when I'm demonstrating how to do something on a computer, you know, click here, then go to this, and then this. When students are trying to watch you do that on the board, a lot of the time they're trying to do it at the same time, even when you tell them not to. So it's nice for them to be able to actually watch a video, pause it, do what has been asked of them, and then if they get stuck or fall behind, they can rewind and check what they've missed out. It's also a way to archive all your hard work. If you are recording your fantastic board work or your lessons, or you're creating work on a video to extend and support your students, it's a great way to archive it all by having a YouTube channel and saying, look, this is what I've done. You can also now create quizzes to accompany videos. This has been a kind of beta in YouTube to add your own questions to videos. Also, you can use TED to flip videos to add a lesson plan to it and quizzes. I use videos on my blog as homework, and I attach a Google form with questions in there, so I'm testing my students' understanding. And what I found really exciting was the last bullet point on there was revising for upcoming exams. I didn't ask my students to go back and look at any of my videos. I just said, we're having a test at the end of this unit, this is what it's going to be about. And I wasn't expecting it, it just happened. Students started to go back on ICT with Miss P, they went back over the lessons that were on there, and they went through the videos and started to revise for themselves. And because I had curated the content for them, they were finding the specific websites that they needed to have access to and finding the information that they knew would help them do well in the exam. How do I do all this? Well, I use Google Apps for Education. It's a completely free service and you set it up with your own domain. So I work at a school called Robert Clack, so I set up the domain Robert Clack Apps, and when students access this, they log in with a password that I completely administrate myself, and it gives them access to things like Google Documents, Gmail, calendars, and I can keep it completely within the domain of my school and completely within my own control. So if I create a document for my students, I just want my students to see it. In the sharing settings, I have extra options. I can share it with anyone inside my organisation, Robert Clack School, or I can share it with them using the link. So that means only students within the domain can access it, or teachers within the domain. This is really, really beneficial and handy, and has been a great way for our students to have their own kind of online space to demonstrate their work through an e-portfolio system. For me, student e-portfolios are really important. It's a way for them to collect evidence of their own work and put it somewhere online. It's a way of reflecting a positive online experience rather than a negative one. And it's about teaching students how to control what is online about them. So when you Google your name, what's coming up isn't, really terrible things like Facebook information or pictures, but something that you've created that demonstrates the positive aspects of your educational life. And it's teaching students how to learn to interact with the web safely. Our e-portfolios are using Google Sites within the Robert Clack Apps domain. So I can see them, they share them with each other. When they go home, they can show their parents, this is the work I've done in class, isn't it fantastic? And it's a positive effect. I think as we move on now, e-portfolios are going to become really important for students. So instead of having a CV, it's quite likely they're going to have a web space that demonstrates all their work. I teach a subject where we don't have exercise books, so having an e-portfolio has been really beneficial for me to be able to mark students' work. They have to attach it to their Google documents get attached to their Google site, and I mark it through comments and so on. Here's an example of one of our student e-portfolios. I set up a template inside Google Sites. Students made a copy of that template and then turned it into their own piece of work. So they put their name on it, they put their information. We were even able to put like target minimum grades on there as well. And I have a badge system in which students are rewarded for their work and for adding work to their ePortfolio, and they unlock a badge. So they can display their badges on their site as well. So now let's have a look at some web tools that are completely free that you are able to use in your classroom. The first one is obviously going to be a blogging website, something like Blogger. As you can see, I've taken a print screen of all my blogs that I have. So I have one for every single year group. So I've got one for year 7, 8, 9. I also have my own teaching and learning journal, and sometimes I teach something called West Ham Academy. And having individual blogs makes it much easier to just add a post every lesson. This is what we're going to be doing in the lesson, having learning objectives, having links to resources that students need. It's so easy to curate. It puts in things like dates for you, so I can just display it on the board. Students know what today's date is, they know what's expected of them, and you can reuse posts that you've used before. You can hide them as well. You can put them back into draft form if you don't want another class to see it. Perhaps your classes are running in different orders. It's just a very powerful and quick way to do things. Something else I also mentioned was Google Forms. I use Google Forms a lot to test the understanding of my students. A great way if you want to flip your classroom, if you want students to watch a video and learn some concepts outside of the classroom, but you're not sure if they're actually going to do that homework, the best way is to add a Google form to that to check which students are doing it and which students aren't. Because it will, if you're using Google Apps for Education, it will pull the information for you, like the student username. And if you've got some really good questions on there to test them, to check that they've watched that video, you'll know before the lesson what concepts they've understood, what concepts you need to go over. Sometimes in class, I might be halfway through a lesson and I think actually, I'm not sure if this lesson is working, I want to test the understanding. It's so quick and easy to use that you can create a Google form with some questions in, and then the print screen that's on the screen at the moment shows the responses to a question, for example, and it's so powerful it will automatically put it into graphs and charts for you, so you can put them up on the board and you can question students further. It's very powerful for testing understanding. Great way to use it as well is for students to create their own Google forms to give to each other. I taught one class how to create their own forms, and they've been using them things like geography as a questionnaire to get answers to, and in science as well, and that's fantastic. YouTube for Schools is a very powerful way of using YouTube. If you don't want to have YouTube completely open for your students so that they can look at music videos, so they can look at silly videos, they can look at computer games all day, that's fair enough. YouTube have thought about this and they have youtube.com/education. And what you can do is you can attach a little piece of code to your filtering system so that students will only have access to YouTube for Schools and not YouTube generally. And using Google Apps for Education, again, you can curate what videos would go on there for your students to see. It's fantastic. Definitely go and check out YouTube for Schools, watch the videos so you understand how you can get this in your school. My videos involve a lot of screen capture. What I'm doing right now is I'm capturing the screen on my computer and talking over it. And a fantastic free resource to be able to do this is screenr.com. I'm using ScreenR right now to capture this presentation and talk over it. And you get 5 minutes free. So completely free, you can record what's on your screen. And what I've done with this presentation, because obviously it's going to be longer than 5 minutes, is I just do it in 5-minute bursts. This is great, not only for me as an IT teacher to say click here, do this and so on, but it's also really good if you are annotating something. Students can watch your annotations as you do them, especially if you've got something like a graphics tablet. Really good for algebra and any kind of mathematical stuff that you might write normally on a board that you could, handwrite. Fantastic. VoiceThread is a really powerful tool if you have lots of presentations. What you can do is you can upload those presentations to this site completely free, and then you can talk over them, you can annotate on them, you can add other pictures and links to go elsewhere, and then you can embed your VoiceThread that you've created into perhaps your blogger site or a website of your choice. This voice thread here that I've taken a print screen of shows a lesson I did for coursework for year 10, and it had a lot of information in there, a lot of concepts that they need to get their head around. So I put it online and talked over it just to remind them, so that if they had to go back to that particular piece of coursework, they could find information on it. And of course, once it's there, it's not like it's something you have to redo over and over again. Once you've done it once, you know, it's a resource that's there forever. Audio Boot is a really great way to record voices. I use it on my smartphone. It's a great way to get feedback on something very, very quickly. You can record yourself speaking and very quickly upload it to Audio Boot and give that link out via Twitter or via your blog or your website. So if you just very quickly want to record yourself, maybe give some instructions to your students, or maybe for cover work even, I'm not in today, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to access. It's very quick and easy to do. I also use it to get feedback from students. So if I've created a new lesson or I want to know how they feel about something, I will just put my phone in front of them, ask them to speak, and it's just very quick, efficient and easy to use. You can create your own podcast using it. Such a fantastic free resource, and you can get apps you can download for all of your devices. So Creative is another great website for questioning. You can go on there, you log in, and you have a little administrative screen like the print screen you can see at the front, and you can set up some quizzes. So you can have a multiple choice or a true and false. You can have a little race, and you write your questions, you start your quiz, and then the students go to a room. You give them a room number, they go to that room, and then they start answering the questions. And it's really graphical and quick and so easy to use, and can be a really fantastic, fun, interactive experience for students, especially if you do something like Space Race, where it automatically puts your students into groups and they race each other answering the questions to win. That can be a really exciting and fun thing to do. Or even if you just want to test very quickly students' understanding. It gives you feedback at the end that you can then again display on the board. It does take a while to write your questions, but I think once you've done that once, again, you know, you've always got that in your login, and you can always pull those questions out the bank. Class Dojo really began as something that could be used for managing your classroom, to be able to give students good merits for points, and also to take them away if they're being naughty. So it's really good for kind of low, younger children, kind of year 7s or perhaps primary school. You just upload a list of names, and then you can click on the little picture of them, which is their little monsters, right? You can give them a well done mark for doing something well, perhaps for putting their hands up to answer a question, perhaps for helping someone else. And you can also take those points away. Perhaps they're out of their seats, perhaps they're messing around, they're being disruptive. That's how it kind of begun. But what I did with it is I took it and I started using it for assessment, because what you can do is you can create your own kind of merits and demerits, your own point system. You can completely customize what they say. So perhaps I want students to demonstrate certain things in my lesson. You need to have completed a website by the end of today. It must have hyperlinks in it. And I can go around, and because it works with my my smartphone, I can walk around the class. If a student's done it, I can click on their name and give them that point, and because it's displayed on the classroom board, students can see it and they can see their points going up, and they know what they need to do next. Really great for PE, I found, when talking to some PE teachers, for them to be able to do that in the classroom, have that up on the board while the students are running around doing their exercises, demonstrating what they needed to demonstrate. A teacher could very quickly, again with a smartphone, just demonstrate, click on their name, give them the point for doing something well. At the end of the lesson, you can download information as well. You can pull information and give you statistics on timings and so on, and who achieved what. Fantastic. Really easy to upload a class as well. Poplit is a way of creating mind maps really quickly online, and it's really interactive and free and easy to use, which makes it great. You can very quickly, and students can very quickly create their own mind maps. They can add information like links and pictures as well as text. It's a great way for them to link their learning. This year I've got really into using badges for assessment. Using badges, telling students that once they've achieved a piece of work, or they've achieved all the objectives in a unit, they can unlock a badge. It's a really powerful thing to say to students. It means something to them. It's about gamifying your classroom, and it's something they understand because they play Xbox, they play PlayStation, and they love achievements. Kids love stickers, they love badges. There are some great websites that facilitate this. Open Badges through Mozilla, you can create your own badges. Students can have their own backpack in which they collect their badges in. And a friend of mine called James T. Sanders, he created Class Badges, which is another system for that. You can create your own badges, or they've created some fantastic badges on there that you can use. You can set up your classroom, you can add your students on there, and once they've achieved whatever it is they need to achieve, they can be given a badge. Really great. For me at the moment, I'm not using either of those, and the only reason I'm not using them is because for me it's an extra login that I don't really want to have to give my students. They're already logging into the school network, and then they're logging into Google Apps for Education. So a third login for me would be a step too far. I'm hoping that Class Badges will integrate with Google Apps for Education. So once a student logs into Robert Clack Apps, it would also log them into Class Badges as well. When that happens, I will very swiftly move over to it, because at the moment what I have done is I've created my own badges, which are images. So I have to mark all my students' work, and then if I think they've achieved it, I have to share the badge with them. They have to download it and then attach it to their site. It's quite a long process. I mean, the students love it, don't get me wrong, but it would be nice if there was some kind of automation involved with that. So these are the badges that I created. I just made some images. So in Year 7, if they attach all of their work to their e-portfolio, they've met the objectives of each piece of work, and they've demonstrated the skills that are needed in that unit, then I will give them a badge. And they attach these badges to their site. These are the Year 8 ones, very similar. I changed the shape of them, so as they go up throughout the years, they become a bit more sophisticated. At the end of the year, we have an end of year exam. So I thought it'd be really nice as students move through the years, they take their e-portfolio with them, that they can have, you know, I've passed Year 7, I've passed Year 8, and so on. I also have some specialist IT badges. If a student demonstrates fantastic problem-solving skills, they can unlock a badge. If they proofread their work, if they collaborate well using Google Apps for Education perhaps, they give a presentation in class, or they demonstrate to the class how to do something, they can get a badge for that as well. We have ICT Practitioner of the Week at my school, so every week a student is nominated for that in every year group, and they get a certificate in assembly. And I'd been making badges for so long that I thought, how amazing would it be if they got every single badge, they could get an all the badges badge. But that was because I got a bit carried away. The feedback from students on this has been amazing. I wasn't really prepared for, especially Year 8s, to kind of, you know, do the yes, I've got a badge kind of thing to their friends, and how quickly they put them on their e-portfolio surprised me. You know, they want them, and it's really easy to explain to a student why they haven't perhaps got a badge. You know, well, why haven't I got this one? He's got it. Well, did you do this step and this step, and have you shown this? Oh, no, I better go and do that. So I'm hoping next year as well to have levels with my badges, so I'll have bronze, silver and gold for kind of different levels of ability, and I think that would be a really nice way to demonstrate assessment. If you don't just want to blend your learning of your environment, you want to flip your classroom as well, TED-Ed is a brilliant website to do that with. They have some fantastic content on there. They have teamed up animators with educators and have produced some amazing videos that you can take, you can flip them, and have your students access that work. Really worthwhile having a look. Do the tour, there's a video tour of how to use the website. Very, very exciting. Perhaps you have a fantastic lesson. You know, you can submit that and they will team you up with an animator to animate it for you. Definitely worthwhile if you know you've got this fantastic lesson that other people could use around the world. I am a Google teacher. I do use Chrome. Chrome's very, very powerful. We're able to use Google Documents and all the functionality within Google Apps for Education because we're using Chrome. And you can also have the Chrome App Store. Students are even using the App Store. Here you can see I've taken a print screen of my Google Chrome. When I load it up, I'm logged into Google Chrome with my Gmail account, and all of my apps that I've added through the Chrome App Store are displayed. So things I use all the time like Gmail and Calendar and Blogger, very quick and easy to access, but also other things you can add on, like to-do lists. If you've got a task list that you want to tick off, I also have my timetable on there with my study life. It will tell me what lessons I've got next. Sumo Paint, which is a great online application to quickly edit some pictures you might want to use. And I also generate QR codes for homeworks and things that I give to students, or I put up around the classroom, or I put on the desks. So having access to these really quickly is great. And I have a Chromebook as well, which makes it even easier to use all of these kinds of applications. I log into Google Chrome with different accounts. So this one is my kind of Gmail account that I use for everything. I have a Robert Clack Apps account that I log into, and you can have multiple users within Chrome. I've got a little picture of a ninja in the top left hand corner. If you click on that, I can move between my users. I have a Geek Girl Diaries one as well. So I can move between the different Chrome logins and different email accounts and so on. Very, very powerful. Chrome has so many tools in there that makes it a very powerful tool for educators. And moving towards Chromebooks is something that is quite exciting for me, and I know a lot of schools have done it. And those schools have been very successful in bringing them into the classroom. That's really all from me. I hope you have enjoyed this very kind of cut down, quick run through of a talk that I gave at BET. I'm sure I did a much better job when I gave this to a large crowd of people, but I hope you've taken something from it. There are some great web tools out there. There's more than the ones that I have shown you that you can use to make your learning experience for your students more dynamic and, break free of the four walls and have it so that it's outside, so it's constantly in your students' mind. If they want to do a piece of work for you, they've got a way of finding out that information. I use Twitter quite heavily. Some people feel uncomfortable about having a Twitter account for their students, which I can understand. It's great for like sixth formers, students who are over the age of 16, to access me and ask questions about coursework, but some people don't feel confident with that. Then great to have a website in which students can perhaps submit questions through a Google form that you can answer. I am Carrie Anne Philbin. You can speak to me through Twitter using @MissPhilbin. You can email me via my blog, via my website, and my YouTube channel. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any and all of them. I hope this has been beneficial to you. Take care.